I'll never forget the moment she stood in front of me, brazen as hell, dragging some meathead into our living room and spitting out the words that burned themselves into my skull. "This is what a real man looks like." She said it with this cold little smirk, like I was nothing more than a shadow in my own home. My kids were upstairs, the house smelled like the dinner I'd cooked, and here she was parading her lover through the front door like a twisted trophy. You know, when you live with someone long enough, you think you've seen every side of them. The laughter, the tears, the arguments, the quiet moments before bed. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the look in her eyes that night. It wasn't anger, it wasn't love, it wasn't even hate. It was mockery. She wanted me to break, to crumble right there in front of this stranger. Before I go on, let me pause for a second. If you like true, raw stories like this, the kind that make you shake your head and wonder how people can be so cruel, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Because here's the thing. What she didn't know, what he didn't know, was that I was already prepared. I'd seen the late-night texts, the hushed phone calls, the work meetings that didn't add up. I knew. And instead of blowing up, instead of begging or yelling, I had been waiting. Watching. Planning. So when she dragged him in, puffed up like some kind of prize fighter, I didn't flinch. I didn't scream. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a single tear. I just looked at him, this guy who clearly thought he was stepping into some easy victory, and I smiled. A slow, cold smile that must have twisted something inside him, because for a second his bravado cracked. "You think you can just waltz into my home and prove something?" I asked, my voice calm, steady. "You're about to find out who really runs this house." What happened next? Well, let's just say the fight wasn't fair. Not for him. I wasn't some pushover, and I wasn't about to be humiliated in my own living room. The man came at me first, probably expecting me to back down. He was wrong. Every ounce of pent-up rage, every sleepless night, every moment I'd swallowed my pride instead of lashing out, it all came out right there. My fists, my speed, my training. I unleashed hell. It didn't take long before he realized he was in way over his head. One solid hit to his gut and another across his jaw, and the real man she'd brought home was staggering, gasping, and scrambling for the door like a wounded animal. My dog, my loyal protector, was growling low in his chest the whole time, ready to tear into him if I gave the word. And here's the kicker. As he stumbled out of my house, humiliated, he turned back with a sneer and muttered, "This isn't over." I should have laughed. I should have let him limp away and disappear into the night. But he wasn't bluffing. The coward didn't just leave. He came back. And he didn't come alone. That's where everything changed. I barely had time to wash the blood off my knuckles before I heard the sound of engines outside. Not just one. 3. Their headlights cut through the blinds, sweeping across the living room like searchlights. My gut told me exactly who it was. That coward couldn't take the humiliation, so he brought reinforcements. I stood by the window, watching the silhouettes move around the driveway. 3 men, shoulders squared, trying their best to look intimidating. My wife peeked from behind the staircase, eyes wide, whispering, "Oh my God, what did you do?" Like I was the problem here, not the man she paraded into my home. She didn't realize it yet, but tonight wasn't about jealousy or betrayal anymore. This was about survival, mine and my kids. I called upstairs, my voice sharp but calm. "Lock your doors. Don't come out until I say." My kids didn't argue. They knew from the tone of my voice this wasn't a drill. The first knock wasn't really a knock. It was a slam that rattled the frame. Then came the voice, that familiar, shaky bravado of the man I'd already beaten once. "Come out, tough guy. Let's see how strong you are now." I didn't move. I wanted him to stew in his own desperation. Then the second slam came, louder, followed by the sound of someone laughing, low and cruel. My dog's ears perked up, muscles coiled, a low growl vibrating in his chest. He was ready before I even gave him a signal. You see, I hadn't just been preparing for betrayal. Life had taught me a long time ago that danger doesn't send invitations. It kicks in doors. And that's why I trained my dog like he was family, like he was another soldier in my corner. Loyal, unflinching, deadly serious when it mattered. The third slam cracked the wood, and that was enough. I swung the door open myself. Better to face them on my terms than wait for them to bust in. 3 men stood there, hoods pulled up, hands twitching like they couldn't decide between fists and weapons. And right in the middle was him. The same man who had strutted into my house hours earlier, now with swollen lips and bruises from our first encounter. His pride hurt worse than his body, though, and I could see it in the way he kept glancing at his friends, desperate for them to validate his courage. "Well," I said, stepping forward onto the porch, "you brought backup. Smart move. If you think numbers can make up for cowardice." That got under his skin, just like I wanted. He lunged, but before he could get within striking distance, my dog exploded forward. A blur of muscle and fury, he cut straight between us, teeth bared, snapping so close the man stumbled back into his friend. The growl that came out of my dog wasn't just sound. It was a warning straight from nature itself. One of the guys reached into his pocket, and that's when I stepped in. "Bad idea," I said coldly, my voice cutting through the night. "You're on my property. 3 witnesses upstairs. Security cameras on every corner. You think you're gonna walk away clean if you try something stupid?" They hesitated. I could see them calculating, weighing their options. My dog didn't hesitate. He paced in front of me, hackles raised, tail rigid, ready to pounce. Every time they shifted a foot forward, he advanced an inch, eyes locked on theirs like a soldier sighting a target. The leader, my wife's real man, tried to save face. He puffed his chest out, sneering, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "You can't hide behind your mutt forever." That's when I laughed. Not a big laugh, not a joke, just a low, humorless chuckle. "Hide? Son, I'm standing right here. If you think I need him to deal with you, then you haven't learned a damn thing since the last time you came running." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. My wife stood frozen in the doorway, torn between fear and disbelief. The men shuffled, muttered curses under their breath. And then, just like that, they broke. Not with a fight, not with some grand showdown, but with the quiet collapse of bravado. The 2 friends pulled him back, muttering about "not worth it" and cameras everywhere. He spat on the ground, pointing a finger at me like a final, empty threat. "This isn't over," he growled that I didn't blink. "It already is." They got back in their cars and peeled out, tires screeching against the pavement, their anger burning rubber on my street. My dog sat at my side, chest heaving, eyes still locked on the taillights until they disappeared. Then he turned, looked at me, and I swear it was like he was saying, "We did it." Inside, my wife's face was pale, her hands shaking. For the first time, I think she saw me differently. Not the husband she mocked, but the man who just defended his family against the chaos she invited in. But if she thought that was the end, she was dead wrong. This was only the beginning. The night after the standoff with her lover and his friends, the house was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that presses against your skull, reminding you that the storm isn't over. It's only waiting to eat breakfast. My wife acted like nothing had happened. She poured orange juice, asked the kids about homework, smiled like she hadn't dragged chaos into our home. But the first dagger didn't come from her. It came from my son. "Dad," he muttered, eyes on his cereal. "Mom says you scared her last night." I froze. My wife didn't even look up. She just smirked into her coffee. And then my daughter piled on. "She said you yelled and almost hurt someone." "Is that true?" I realized what was happening. She wasn't just betraying me anymore. She was poisoning them against me, turning the people I loved most into weapons that cut deeper than any fist fight ever could. That I didn't shout. I didn't defend myself with anger. Instead, I crouched to their level and spoke carefully. "I would never hurt you. I only stopped someone from hurting our family. The truth will always show itself." My wife scoffed under her breath, but I ignored her. That night, I started keeping records. Every word she whispered to them, every accusation, every little manipulation, I wrote it all down. Times, dates, exact quotes. I wasn't going to fight her lies with noise. I'd fight them with evidence. Soon, she raised the stakes. She began telling them stories when she thought I wasn't listening. How I was unstable, how the dog was dangerous, how they needed to stay close to her if they wanted to feel safe. It worked for a while. My daughter avoided the dog. My son asked if we could maybe not play so rough outside anymore. It broke me inside, but I played it cool. So I countered. I printed out my dog's training certificates, vet records, obedience school reports, and left them where the kids could see. I even showed them how the dog followed my commands. Sit. Stay. Check. My son's eyes lit up when the dog calmly circled the house like a soldier on patrol, then returned to sit at my feet. A little trust, reclaimed, but my wife wasn't finished. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone, voice low but sharp. He won't win. The kids will be mine. He has no idea what's coming. She laughed, thinking she was safe. But I was standing in the hallway, recording every word. She didn't know I'd already spoken to an attorney. I had started building my case. Calm, methodical, strategic. I had neighbors who saw the thugs at my door. I had texts, screenshots, timestamps. And now I had proof she was trying to weaponize the kids against me. The kids didn't understand the war happening around them, but I did. And I wasn't going to let them become collateral damage. That night, as I tucked them in, my daughter whispered, "Mom says you don't love her anymore." I kissed her forehead and replied, "I love you. That will never change. And one day, you'll see the whole truth." I left their room, my dog padding quietly behind me, his steady presence a reminder I wasn't fighting alone. The battle had shifted from fists and threats to lies and manipulation. But I was ready, because if she wanted a war of words and strategy, I was the wrong man to underestimate. And this was just the beginning to be why the end of the week. My wife had a new plan. If she couldn't win inside the house, she'd try to win outside of it. That a mutual friend sent me a screenshot from her private story, a black and white selfie, red eyes, captioned, "Pray for me." Some people aren't who they pretend to be. No names, no facts, just bait. The comments were predictable. "Stay strong. You deserve better." I didn't answer. I saved the screenshot for my growing file. At dinner that night, she played the victim in front of the kids. "I might stay with grandma for a while, just to feel safe." She let the words hang, planting the idea that safety meant without me. My son frowned. My daughter shifted in her chair. "Home is safe," I said calmly, rinsing dishes. "And it will stay that way." The next day I took action. I met with the school counselor, explained what had happened at our home, gave her the incident number, and told her about the therapy sessions I'd arranged. Then I drove my dog to the trainer for a fresh evaluation. He passed every test with ease. Loud noises, strangers, commands. I walked out with an official letter, non-aggressive, obedient, safe with children. Another piece of evidence. By Saturday, the neighbor across the street, retired firefighter, plenty of cameras, handed me a flash drive. "Got their license plates," he said simply. I added it to my binder. Brick by brick, her lies were crumbling. That evening she tried a new angle. "You're scaring the kids," she whispered, her voice shaking just enough to sound rehearsed. "Maybe you should stay somewhere else." "I'm not leaving my home," I said evenly. "If you feel unsafe, document it. Or let's put it in front of someone neutral." Her face tightened. She understood exactly what I meant. Court. The very next day she announced to the kids that they'd be going to grandma's for the week. She packed a bag, trying to walk past me like I was invisible. "No," I said firmly, but without raising my voice. "Not without an agreement or an order." "Dinner with grandma, yes. A full relocation? No." She exploded, shouting that I was controlling, that I wanted to trap her. The kids froze, wide-eyed. I stayed calm. "Shoes on," I told them. "We're going to the park." At the park, we played fetch with the dog. My daughter laughed when he brought the ball back and sat politely at her feet. My son timed his runs on my watch. For an hour, there were no lies, no manipulations. Just normal life. That night, I left 2 envelopes on the kitchen counter. One for her, one for me. Inside, a proposed temporary schedule, school days with me, evenings split, alternate weekends, neutral location exchanges, no overnight visitors. I signed my half, left her space for hers. She read it and laughed bitterly. "You think you can control me with paperwork?" "No," I said, locking eyes. "I'm protecting our kids. Judges like structure. And this is structure." The next morning, I packed lunches, tied shoelaces, and left for school with the kids. She stayed inside, filming us through the blinds like a ghost trapped in her own story. I waved once, not for her, for the record. That night, my attorney called. "We file tomorrow," she said. "Temporary orders. You're playing this exactly right. Stay calm. Stay consistent. Judges reward clocks, not chaos." For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. The war wasn't over, but the battleground was shifting. From lies in the shadows to truth on paper. And that was a fight I was built for. Court came faster than I expected. Monday morning, my attorney filed for temporary custody orders. By Thursday, We were sitting on hard wooden benches under fluorescent lights. The air thick with every broken promise that ever brought people here. She arrived in a blazer 2 sizes too expensive, holding the kids' hands like props. Her mother trailed behind, whispering like a coach before a boxing match. The lover wasn't there, but his shadow was. I could feel his smug fingerprints on every word she planned to say. Her lawyer painted me as a tyrant. Volatile, intimidating, dangerous dog. The words rolled off his tongue like he'd been practicing them for weeks. My wife nodded, even dabbed her eyes with a tissue she'd pulled from her sleeve. Theatrics. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I laid out the binder. Police incident number. Neighbor's video. Screenshots of her vague, pray for me post. The trainer's evaluation letter. The school counselor's notes confirming I'd been proactive. Evidence, not emotion. The judge flipped through the pages, her face unreadable. Then she looked at my wife. These bruised photos you submitted. When exactly were they taken? My wife stammered. She gave a date. My attorney slid over a time-stamped clip of her on the same night, laughing on the phone, applying makeup in front of a ring light. The courtroom went so quiet you could hear someone coughing in the back row. Temporary orders were set. The kids with me during the school week, structured visits for her, neutral exchanges, no overnight guests. The dog? Allowed, under supervision, with continued training. My wife's face cracked just enough to show the storm brewing behind her perfect makeup that we left the courthouse in silence. She stalked past me without a glance, her mother hissing something about liar, and this isn't over. The kids tugged at my sleeves, asking if we could get pizza on the way home. I said yes, because that's what mattered, but the lover wasn't done. That evening, my phone buzzed with a new text from a blocked number. You might have tricked the judge, but you can't keep her from me. He attached a photo. I'm outside a bar, arm around another woman, glass raised like a victory toast. Proof, if I wanted it, that his loyalty was as thin as his threats. That I saved the message. Not because it scared me, but because I knew it would matter later. Sooner or later, his arrogance would undo both of them. At dinner, my son asked, "Dad, are we going to be okay now?" I looked at him, then at my daughter, who was quietly feeding spaghetti to the dog under the table. We're already okay, I said. We just have to keep moving forward. That night, I stood at the window, binder on the table behind me, the dog lying at my feet. My wife wanted chaos. Her lover wanted revenge. But what I had, routine, evidence, structure, was stronger than both. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just surviving. I was winning. The week after court felt like walking a tightrope with my kids on my shoulders. We had a routine now: wake-ups, lunches, school, therapy Tuesdays, trainer Thursdays, and I guarded it like a vault. That's when a new knock came at the door. 2 people with polite smiles and clipboards. Child Protective Services, the woman said. We received a report. We'd like to talk. My stomach dropped, but my face didn't. Of course, I said, stepping aside. Kitchen table's clear. Cameras are visible. Dog is kenneled. Would you like water? They blinked. Most people panic. I presented order. The allegations were vague. Yelling, unsafe animal, emotional volatility. Nothing specific, smoke without fire. I handed them the binder. Incident numbers, school emails, therapist intake, trainer letter, temporary court orders, the proposed schedule she refused to sign. I didn't rant. I narrated. We have dinner at 6:30, I said, pointing to the chore wheel my son decorated with crooked stars. Homework check by 7:15. Reading at 8. Dog training exercises are calm and supervised. They spoke with the kids separately. I didn't coach, didn't hover. I stood in the hallway, listening to the low hum of their voices and the dog's steady breathing from his crate. When they were done, the CPS worker closed her folder more gently than she'd opened it. "Thank you for your time," she said. "We'll be in touch." I walked them to the door. Across the street, my neighbor watered the same strip of grass for the 3rd time that morning, eyes flicking between us. Word travels without talking. By evening, the next punch landed. My boss called. "We received an anonymous email alleging instability at home," he said carefully. "I'm required to ask if you need time off." "I'm fully operational," I said. "Court orders in place. Kids' schedule stable. I'll forward documentation." He exhaled. "Do that. And take the time if you need it." Translation: "We believe you. but keep the trains on time. I could do that. Then the lover slipped. I was finishing dishes when a new text arrived, a screenshot of a group chat. His buddies, my wife. He must have hit forward instead of save. They were planning a chance run-in at the kids' pickup, a performance designed to make me look aggressive. My pulse ticked once. I forwarded it to my attorney, then to the school with a single line. For your awareness, I'll be using the front office only. Pickup came. I walked inside, signed the log, shook the secretary's hand. When we stepped out, he was across the parking lot, leaning on a car like a billboard for bad decisions. He lifted a hand in mock greeting. I didn't look. We got into our car, buckled, and drove off. My daughter asked if that was Mom's friend. I said, a stranger, and turned up the radio. That night, the therapist sent a note. Both kids describe Mom as sad and angry. Recommend consistent routine with Dad. No pressure to pick sides. Reinforce safety with the dog. I pinned it to the board beside the calendar. Facts, not fireworks. Saturday my wife called. No lawyers, no scripts. Just her voice, brittle and tired. They sent CPS, she said, as if someone else had made the call. Did you tell them I'm a bad mother? No, I said. I told them our schedule. Silence stretched. Then she tried a different knife. He says you're turning the kids against me. He. I asked, she swallowed. The line crackled with the sound of her doubt. Don't paint me as a monster, okay? I'm not okay. I'm not painting anything, I said. I'm building structure. You can step into it anytime. She hung up. 10 seconds later, a text arrived from the blocked number. You're dead if you keep making her cry. I saved it. The dog lifted his head, listening to a tone only he could hear, then put it back down. Smart creature. Knew the difference between a storm and thunder on a phone. Sunday morning, my son asked if we could invite Grandma to watch him ride his bike at the park. I texted the suggestion, offered a time and neutral spot. She replied with 9 messages about control and performance. Grandma didn't come. My son rode anyway, every lap smoother than the last. Small victories stack higher than threats. That afternoon, CPS called back. Case closed, no findings. They thanked me for organizational clarity. I thanked them for their time and set the phone down like it might explode. The kids were drawing at the table, 4 stick figures and a dog. Porch light, bright yellow again. My daughter added a heart above the house. She didn't label it home. She didn't need to. Evening landed. I grilled chicken. The dog curled on his mat, the house breathing at a normal pace. My phone buzzed. One last message from the block number. A blurry shot of him outside some bar, middle finger up. A man who didn't know how to lose quietly. I powered the phone off and slid it beneath the binder. Revenge would have been answering rage with rage. I chose something worse for them and better for us. I kept the lights on, kept the schedule, kept the receipts. The lies were getting louder. The truth didn't have to shout. When I tucked the kids in, my daughter asked, Dad, will Mom come over tomorrow? Maybe not tomorrow, I said. But she will when it's time. Will you be here? Every day, I answered. The dog thumped his tail once, like a gavel. Outside, the night pressed its face to the windows. Inside, we held our pattern. The next shock would come soon. I could feel it like pressure before rain, but the foundation was set. And foundations don't flinch. The calm after CPS didn't last. By Wednesday, my attorney called. She's filed a motion to modify custody. Claims you're alienating the kids. Alienation. The word sat heavy. The very thing she'd been doing. Feeding them lies. She was now accusing me of. Classic reversal. Court set a new hearing for the following week. In the meantime, she ramped up the show. At drop-off, she wore oversized sunglasses, the kind meant to hide tears she didn't have. She hugged the kids like a farewell scene from a movie, whispering just loud enough for the teachers to hear. Be strong without me. The teachers looked at me, uneasy. I smiled, handed over lunch boxes, and said, see you at 3. Stability over spectacle. That night, a neighbor texted me a video. It was my wife in her driveway with the lover, staging a scene. She shouted, stop filming me. You're harassing me. But the camera was in her own hand, pointed conveniently away from him. He smirked, leaning against her car, clearly part of the act. I saved it. Judges don't like theater when the wires show. The kids weren't blind either. At bedtime, my son asked, why does Mom act different when other people are around? I paused, careful. Sometimes adults pretend because they're scared of losing. What matters is that you know you're safe. He nodded, but the weight in his eyes was older than his years. Friday brought the hearing. The courtroom was smaller this time, but the tension was thicker. Her lawyer spun tales of a father isolating children, controlling access, manipulating routines. Then he played her driveway video as Exhibit A. "Your Honor," he said, "this is a clear example of intimidation." My attorney stood. "Actually, it's Exhibit B." She played the neighbor's video, the exact same scene, but from across the street. It showed my wife aiming her phone, gesturing wildly, while the lover lounged casually nearby. No harassment, no intimidation, just a performance. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Last name. Do you wish to explain this discrepancy?" My wife's lips parted, but no words came. The silence stretched long enough to echo. Her lawyer shuffled papers like they might save him. They didn't. The judge's ruling was sharp. Temporary orders remained, with an added note: all exchanges to occur at the sheriff's office parking lot, under camera surveillance. Neutral ground. No more performances. Outside the courthouse, she exploded. "You're poisoning everyone against me," she hissed, eyes darting to see if anyone was filming. "No," I said calmly. "You're doing that yourself." The lover appeared then, swaggering like he owned the steps. He muttered something about me, hiding behind paperwork. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Two deputies stood nearby, and even he wasn't stupid enough to test them. That weekend, the kids and I built a fort in the living room out of blankets and couch cushions. We ate popcorn inside. The dog curled at the entrance like a sentry. My daughter whispered, "It feels normal here." And in that small fortress of fabric and laughter, I realized something. She was losing not because I fought harder, but because I refused to play her game. Sunday night, another message buzzed in. This time, not from a blocked number. It was from her phone, though I doubted the words were hers. "You'll regret taking her kids." Attached was a blurry photo of my house, shot from the street, headlights flooding the lawn. I didn't flinch. I forwarded it to my attorney, then the police. Documentation. Structure. My weapons. When I locked up that night, the dog stood at the back door, ears up, waiting. I patted his head. "Let them watch," I whispered. "We'll keep the lights on." The storm was building, louder and more reckless. But the foundation was holding. And I knew the next crack wouldn't come from me. After the judge moved exchanges to the sheriff's lot, the theatrics died down. Not the pressure, just the performances. We met under floodlights and cameras, deputies drifting in and out like quiet gravity. She arrived late twice, each time with the same brittle smile and a new excuse. The lover watched from a car across the street, engine idling, too scared to step onto recorded ground. The kids adapted faster than the adults. They learned the rhythm. Handoff, hug, see you Tuesday. Buckles clicked, doors shut. No whisper campaigns, no sudden tears. Routine had begun to starve chaos. Then the financial cracks showed. A collections letter slid under my door by mistake. Her name, past due balance, a medical bill from months back. The landlord at her place posted a notice for administrative inspection, code for we're counting the days. She told the kids it was temporary, that she was between places. My son didn't buy it. My daughter looked at the dog and asked if houses could be scared. I told her yes. Friday's exchange got messy anyway. He couldn't help himself. As we pulled in, the lover crossed the street like a man who thinks lines don't apply to him. A deputy stepped forward, palm up, voice level. "Sir," back to the sidewalk. He smirked, threw a sentence about me being a coward, and took one more step. The deputy didn't raise his voice. He just raised a citation book. The pen scratch sounded like a verdict. Back home, I made tacos and let the kids build towers out of canned beans and boxes of rice. Small wins, stacked. After bedtime, I opened the binder and added 2 pages. Exchange log times, the citation number the deputy read aloud. Documentation was becoming a kind of prayer, quiet, repetitive, and oddly calming. Saturday morning brought the unraveling I'd expected but hadn't asked for. A friend sent me screenshots from a private group. The lover tagged in photos with a different woman 2 towns over. Same bar, same smirk, same glass raised. The comments were not kind. My wife's name appeared in replies that felt like knives with handles made of gossip. I didn't show the kids. I just forwarded the set to my attorney with one line. Context. That afternoon, my wife called from a new number. Her voice had no edges left. Can you bring the kids an hour early tomorrow? She asked. I have something. The pause stretched. I said we'd meet at the standard time, standard place. She hung up. Sunday evening, she didn't show. I waited the required 15 minutes, logged the time with the deputy, and took the kids home. We ate leftover tacos, played cards, and let the dog sleep with his head on my daughter's toes. 30 minutes into a movie, my phone buzzed with a hospital prefix. Mr. Ward? A nurse asked. You're listed as emergency contact for Ms. last name. She's stable, but she was brought in dehydrated and distressed. She asked us to call. For a second, the room went quiet in a new way. The kids watched me like I'd been asked to defuse a bomb. Is Mom okay? My son asked, standing so suddenly his chair scraped tile. She's stable. I repeated. She's at the hospital. She asked for us to know. I paused, weighing 100 options against two small faces. This wasn't about winning. It was about what I'd tell them 10 years from now when they asked who we were during the worst week of our lives. We're not going tonight, I said gently. It's late, and you're safe here. Tomorrow, I'll check on her and talk to the doctor. We'll do it the right way. They nodded, not happy, but believing me. The dog lifted his head, ears tilted, as if even he understood the fork in the road. After they slept, I called the nurse back, verified details, and asked the questions that matter. Was there someone else with her? No. Any immediate needs? A ride tomorrow, help with discharge instructions, maybe pharmacy pickup. I could do those without breaking the court's spine or my own. That I stood at the window with the binder closed, in the house breathing evenly. The lover had vanished, just like men do when the scene changes from spotlight to fluorescent bulbs. My wife had wanted a war of narratives. Now she was alone with reality, and reality doesn't clap that eye in the morning. I drive to the hospital, not as a husband begging for anything, but as a father who understands that mercy is a kind of structure too. The kids would wake to pancakes and school and a plan. Stability first, compassion second, pride nowhere on the list. That I turned off the lamp. In the dark, the dog settled closer to the door, like always. Outside, the storm finally sounded tired. Inside, I made a promise to a version of myself I hadn't met yet. I will end this well. The climax was coming. Not the kind with shouting and broken glass. The kind where the truth sits at a bedside and both people have to look at it. And I was ready. The hospital smelled like bleach and silence. I walked past rows of curtained beds until a nurse pointed me to a room near the end. My wife sat propped up, for in her arm, eyes sunken but sharper than I expected. The lover wasn't there. He hadn't even called. You came, she whispered, half surprised, half defeated. I'm here for the kids, I said plainly. They needed to know you're safe. Her lips trembled, searching for the right line. She'd always been good at lines. But this time, there was no audience to fool. Just two tired people who dragged each other through fire and now had to stare at the ashes. She looked down at her hands. I messed everything up. I didn't answer. I let the silence fill the space. For the first time, she couldn't bend it to her advantage. Tears slipped out. Real this time, not rehearsed. He left, she admitted. He said he couldn't deal with the drama. After everything, he just disappeared. Her voice cracked. I thought he loved me. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He loved the game. And you handed him the pieces. She flinched like the words themselves were fists. But she didn't deny it. Instead, she said the thing I never expected. I'm sorry. For all of it. For what I did to you. For what I did to them. I studied her face, searching for the mask. It wasn't there. For once, she wasn't performing. She was broken, and broken doesn't play roles. I can't undo the past, she whispered. But please, don't make the kids hate me. I stepped closer, but not too close. I don't have to make them hate you. They see. They know more than you think. What they need now is stability. If you want forgiveness, that starts with showing them you can be honest. Her shoulders sagged. She nodded slowly, as if each inch cost her blood. I'll try, if you'll let me. The nurse came in with discharge papers, breaking the moment. I offered to drive her home, not because I wanted to, but because my kids had asked me to. She accepted without a word. On the ride, she stared out the window, hands folded in her lap. The city rolled by, bright signs, busy streets, but she looked like a ghost. When we pulled into her place, the eviction notice hung crooked on the door. She saw it before I did. Her face crumpled. I don't have anywhere, she muttered. That's not my problem anymore, I said, voice firm but even. Then I softened just enough. I'll cover the hospital bill. For the kids. After that, you figure out your path. She looked at me then, eyes raw. You really don't hate me? I shook my head. Hate takes energy. I've got better things to spend it on. For the first time in years, she didn't argue. She just nodded, opened the door, and stepped inside the hollow shell of her life. When I got home, the kids were waiting on the couch, the dog between them like a furry guardian. My daughter asked, "Did Mom say sorry?" "Yes," I told her. "Did you forgive her?" My son added that I thought about the word. Forgive. It wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about pretending the knife hadn't cut. It was about putting the knife down so it couldn't cut again. I forgave enough, I said. Enough to move forward. The dog wagged his tail, slow and steady. My kids leaned against me, warm and real. In that moment, I realized the war was over, not with explosions, but with surrender. And the victory wasn't revenge. It was peace. Tomorrow, papers would be signed. Custody made permanent. The house would stay ours. The schedule would hold. She would have supervised visits, maybe a chance to rebuild if she chose. But for us, for me and the kids, life was already beginning again. And for the first time in years, the future felt like ours to write. The papers were signed. No more temporary orders. No more waiting for the next court date like a storm cloud. The kids were with me full time. The house was ours, and the dog, our loyal sentinel, slept at the foot of their beds each night. Life didn't flip to perfect overnight. There were still questions, still quiet tears at bedtime when my daughter missed her mom, still moments when my son stared at old photos a little too long. But the difference was this: we had stability. Our house wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was a home. MYX started supervised visits at the family center. The first few times, she cried more than the kids did. She tried, awkwardly, to rebuild trust. I didn't interfere. That wasn't my fight anymore. My job was to give the kids roots and wings, to ground them in routine while showing them the world was still wide open. At work, I found focus again. Projects that had once felt heavy suddenly became manageable. My boss pulled me aside after a presentation and said, "You're back." He was right. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. And then, slowly, love found me again. Not in some whirlwind affair, not in a staged performance, but in quiet moments. A friend from the gym invited me for coffee. Coffee turned into long walks into laughter, laughter into something steady. She met the kids, not with fireworks, but with patience. And they warmed to her the way sunlight warms a cold room. One night. Months later, we all sat on the porch. My daughter leaned against me, my son tossed a ball to the dog, and she, this new woman who had seen me at my lowest, sat beside us, holding my hand. It hit me then. Revenge hadn't been the answer. Structure had. Truth had. Patience had. The best revenge wasn't destroying someone else. It was building a life they could never touch again. That I thought back to that night when my ex paraded her lover into our home. When she told me to look at what a real man looks like. The irony still burned. Because in the end, the man who stayed wasn't him. It was me. And if you've listened this far, I want to thank you. This story wasn't easy to live, and it wasn't easy to tell. But it's real. And I hope it shows that even when people try to break you, you can stand taller than they ever expected. Oh, let me ask you, did I do the right thing? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more true stories like this. Hit that like button and drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, because sometimes sharing the story is the final piece of justice.